Hi everyone, in this video we are going to code the general layout of our website. So let's jump into HTML first. Now before being able to create the entire layout, we need to come up with the sections that we're going to have for this website. So I'm going to jump into body, and the first section is going to be the header section of the website. So I'm just going to say header, and let's just provide a few more dashes there. So this is going to be a semantic element header, and I'm going to give it a class of header. And in here, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to write header. Let's provide a little bit of space. Now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it right here. So the next section of the website, let's come in here. So this is the header, this top part. After that, we have the showcase or the hero section. Then we have the features section. And we have the about section, which is a little bit big, and then the why section, as well as the team members section. This is the testimonial section. This is the blog, and finally we have footer. So we need to create all of these sections so we can align them on our web page. Now this is going to be, let's just copy that. Let's say this is section. Now this section's class is going to be hero. This is the hero section, and in here I'm just going to write hero. Let's grab this header and let's write hero. I'm going to copy this down below. So I'm going to copy it for hero. This is for features, about, why, team, testimonials, and blog. The final one is the footer. Let's provide some space. So this one is features. This is features. After that, what do we have? We have the about section. After the about section, we have the why section, WHY. Let me just provide a space there. There we go. So it is better readable. Okay, let's grab this hero section. After the why, we have the team members. And right after the team members, we have the testimonials. Within the testimonials, we are going to use Swiper.js. I'm going to show you how you can work with that. We have basically inserted the code, the styles, and the script as well, the JavaScript file as well. The only thing remaining is that we need to insert that custom code as well, which basically I'm just going to show you how you can copy paste that, and then that swiper is going to work. But the styles, they're going to be done within the CSS. We are going to change up some styles a little bit. Let's get this completed. This is going to be the blog section. There we go. So all these sections are completed. The final one is going to be footer. So I'm just going to say this is a footer with a class of footer, and the content is going to say footer. Let's just save that, and that's it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 sections. So if I come in here, we don't see anything. We just see this gigantic text on the screen right here. There are 2 A's. Let me fix that first. So this is the header. So the HTML part is done. Let's jump into the CSS part. So for the CSS part, before jumping there, now what do I want to do? How do I want to lay out my website in this for this particular project? So I'm going to grab the body, and I'm going to set it as our container. I'm going to give it a class, and I'm going to say container. Now you might be asking, okay, why do you grab the body? Why do we have a container? Because we want all of our sections to be grid items, if it is grid that we're using to lay out our website, or we want them to be flex items if it is flex that we want to use to create the overall layout of our website. Now, in any case, you need to have a container. So that container could be the body of the HTML document, or you could create another semantic element called the main, and you could provide all of the sections within the main, and main is then going to be the container, which is going to create all the columns and all the rows. So your sections, they're actually laid out the way you want on the screen in the desktop version. That's why we create a container. So let's jump into CSS. Right after the body, I'm going to grab the container. Now, I've talked about this a lot in my previous projects, and I'm going to talk about it again in this one. Now, the decision of how many columns you want and how many rows you want, the number of rows, it is defined by how many sections you have. So that's a predefined thing. When you grab a design, you want to work on a design. So you know, okay, how many sections that website is going to have because you can count them. Now, as far as the number of columns is concerned, you can go ahead and you can create as many columns as you want. But I would suggest creating a minimum number of columns, because the more columns you have, the more it is going to be difficult to have control over all of those columns. So what I'm going to do in this project is I'm going to create 8 columns. Now, I want to have 8 columns. That is something that I've defined right now, that I've decided right now. I decided that I want to have 8 columns. Now, this is one thing that you need to keep in mind. This is very important. The second thing that you need to keep in mind is that your container, it must have a fixed width. You cannot just expect your container to be like 10,000 pixels wide or like 500 pixels wide. It must have a fixed width within which you can create your website. So that is something that is really difficult for beginners, especially beginners that want to create websites. These concepts, they're really important. And you think, okay, for example, this teacher, he explains a lot. The reason for that is if you just watch one of my projects, you will be able to create right away a fantastic, responsive, real-world website, but opposed to other tutorials that they do not talk a lot, they do not explain. You need to watch 10 projects so you can understand, okay, how this is actually done. So that's, at the end of the day, you need to know how something works. And I'm telling it right from the start, so you know, okay, how this layout works. And then you have this concept. The only thing remaining is just tapping on your keyboard. That is the only thing remaining, which you can do, of course. So 8 columns. What I decide for my containers width is going to be 1500, because that is the width of 1500 and something pixels. That is the width of my PC. So you need to decide based on that. The way that you can decide that is just go ahead, get out of this responsive design, open the inspect, click on this, and if you just hover anywhere, or you can just hover on the HTML page, on the HTML document. Okay, here is the HTML. So you can see that it says 1536 pixels is the width of the screen that I'm on. So I'm not gonna include 36 pixels. I'm gonna ignore them. I'm just gonna grab 1500 pixels, and I'm gonna say, okay, this is the size of my container. So 1500 pixels is gonna be 150. 1500 pixels is going to be 150 RAM, and we need to decide the number of columns that we have created based on the number of based on the amount of pixels, or how many pixels we have in our design. So let's do the math. We have 1500 pixels, and then we have 8 columns. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my calculator, and I'm going to say, let me just bring it right here. I'm going to say 1500 divided by 8 columns. So we are going to have 187.5 pixels for one column. That is something that we need to keep in mind. I'm going to bring it down. So why is this text so big? This is so distracting. So let me come here. Font size 160 pixels. Oh, here is the issue. So if I come to top, by mistake, what I've done is instead of writing 10 pixels, I've written 10 rem. I'm sorry for that. Font size for the root element, we have decreased it from 16 pixels to 10 pixels. Let's save that. Everything has to be cool now. Very good. So for each of the columns, when we have 8 columns, each of the columns width is going to be 187.5 pixels. Keep that in mind. This is pixels. This is not rem. Now, if you want to have 10 columns, then each one is going to be 150. So the width of the columns, it is completely dependent on the width of your container and on the number of the columns. So I'm going to say 1500 divided by 8, 187.5 pixels or 18.75 rem. We need to keep that in mind. Let's just jump into code. I'm going to come down here and let's come down here. So first off, I'm going to say display grid. I'm going to use grid to create the entire layout of this website. Grid template columns. And I'm going to say container. Now this is the name of the first line. That's going to be container start. So how many columns do we want? We want to create 8 columns. Now the 8 columns, they're going to have a minimum width and a maximum width. Because we don't want the columns to shrink to 0, we are going to say, okay, the minimum width for the column, it has to be the width of the content. But if the width of the content does not suffice, the maximum width that they can get is 18.75 rem or 187.5 pixels. So I'm going to say min max. This is going to be min content. This is the minimum width. The maximum width is 18.75 rem. And finally, let's name the final grid container line as well. And that is going to be container end. Save that. Everything is okay now. Let's jump into our website that we are trying to create. Now you can see these are the columns that we've created. We can take a look at them if we just activate the grid. So this is the first grid line and this is the last one. The last one says 9. It means we have 8 columns. 9 minus 1, 8 columns. There we go. Now let's grab and let's create the rows. Now, how many sections do we have? Now, this is completely subjective. So you could create two sections side by side. For example, this is also a common practice that this is one section, this text, quick and easy to use the templates. And this image is another section, and the same goes for these, and the same goes for these. So even though I've treated this entire thing as one section, you could treat it as 6 sections. And you can see how one section ends and where the other section starts. This is how it is. So some of them might start, all of them, they start from container start and they end at container end. You could also name these column lines right here. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to name them just for your ease. So how are we going to name them? Let me just go back. So all of them are on one line. So in here, what I'm going to say, this is going to be call dash start. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to come to the end of the min-max parenthesis, and I'm going to say column dash end. So all of the columns, they're going to be named. So this is column start 1, this is column start 2, and column end 1. So each of the columns, except for the first one, they're going to have 2 names. You can name your columns this way as well. There we go. So let's create these sections. The rows, I'm going to say grid template rows, and I'm going to say repeat. Now, I'm going to have 9 sections. You could have different number of sections, and the minimum height, keep in mind, min content in the rows, it talks about height. The minimum height is going to be the min content. We are not specifying how much height. We just want to have 8 sections, 8 rows. How much height, that is going to be defined by the content. That's why we are going to say min content. Min content says the minimum height or the minimum size required to show the content regardless of creating line breaks. That is what min content means. So, and let's just save that. Let's take a look at our website. There we go. Here is our website. If I get out of this container, you can see our line, it ends right here. Can I see that? No, I can't. So it ends somewhere right here, even if I go to 100%. So what we are going to do here is, we do have another property for CSS Grid, and that is justify content. Justify content moves the entire container, and I'm going to set it to center. Why? Because the entire container, the entire web page is 1536. But I don't want that 36 pixels to be on the right. I want it to be 18 pixels on the left and then 18 pixels on the right. You can see that right here as well. So if I just get out of that, So you can see 18 pixels on the right, on the left, and 18 pixels on the right. That is what justify content means. Okay, so the only thing remaining here would be to assigning each section to its specific place within the layout. So let's jump into each of these sections. I'm going to grab them with their class, and we are going to style them. Very simple styles. We're going to change most of those styles when we get to coding. For now, these are placeholder styles because we want to see where our sections actually lie. So this is the header. Let's grab the header. I'm going to give it a placeholder height. This is just to show where the section is located. We are going to get rid of this height, don't worry. And I'm going to say this is the height. Let's give it a background color of var color secondary. And then where do we want it to be within the grid container? So I'm going to say grid column. It is going to be from container dash start all the way to container dash end. Let's save that. Let's take a look at it. So here is our header, and we are gonna lay out all of the items in the same manner. Next up, what do we have? Let me grab these two. Next up, we have the hero section. The class is hero. I'm going to change the color secondary to color tertiary 1. And the location, the grid column is the same. Let's save that. There we go. So here is the showcase section. This is how we create our website. And when we get to actually providing the content, we're going to get rid of this background color and the height. And then the height will be decided by the content itself. Let me copy that, put it right here. After the hero section, we are going to have the features section. So this is the features, and I'm going to say color quaternary. Let's save that. Let's take a look at it. This is color quaternary. Cool. Let me copy this, put it down here. So the next section is going to be the about section. This is that gigantic section I was talking about. And I'm going to say this is going to be secondary. Secondary 1, save that. So this is the about section. Let's copy that. And after the about section, we're going to have the Y section. And this, I'm going to set it to tertiary 2 or 3. In this case, there we go. So this is tertiary 3. After the Y section, we are going to have the team section. There we go. And this is going to be quaternary. Yep. Save that. There we go. So you can see this is the blueprint of our website. This is the entire sections, all these sections. The only thing remaining for us would be just to provide the content and make the content responsive. So we have done most of the work, most of the heavy lifting. The rest is going to be very simple. So testimonials. Save that and let's set it to, so after the quaternary, I'm going to say secondary 1. Save that. There we go. So this is this section. Let's move forward. After the testimonials, what do we have? So after the testimonials, we're going to have the blog section. And this is going to be tertiary 2. Save that. There we go. And finally, we have the footer. So let me grab this, put it down here. And this is going to be footer. So for footer, I'm going to say quaternary. Quaternary. So this is the blueprint of our entire website. Let me go to responsive menu. So when we go to 1500, there is no white space on each side because this is the size of our container. And these are all of the sections that we are going to style from our next, we are going to code and style from our next section onwards, from our next lecture onwards. So I guess with this, our lecture comes to an end. See you in the next one.